but your average oil or natural gas well takes 3 to 8 years to bring online. You cut investment by 60%, the pipeline of new projects collapses. If that number was flipped today, the soonest you would expect the energy inflation the world is experiencing right now to fix itself is 2025, assuming nothing else goes wrong. But it's not true everywhere. This is the checkbook map. Everyone who has a dot up there can pay their power bill. Here are the world's conventional oil and natural gas basins. You'll notice that there's almost no overlap between the lights and the green. Much of our global geopolitical and strategic angst of the last 70 years has been about bringing the oil from where it's produced to where it's used, from the dark to the light. I'm going to click one more time and I'm going to show you where the global shale basins are. Pay particular attention to Saudi Arabia and North America. There are a number of reasons why shale energy is transformative. But for you guys, the most important one is that it's produced not just here, but the parts of here where people live. The transport of oil in the shale world is not a problem for North America. For everyone else, it still is, but not here. There's also a little quirk about shale wells that they don't take 3 to 8 years to develop. They take 3 to 8 weeks. So while everyone else is looking at a macroeconomic picture of energy shortage for a minimum of another 3 years, here it's already fixed itself. We've already seen prices come down in many sectors because once you start drilling, within a couple of months, it's already in the system. So probably by April, from our point of view, energy inflation will be in our past. This is natural gas prices in the United States. These spikes here are hurricanes because we used to get about a third of our natural gas from the Gulf of Mexico. But one of the beautiful things about shale wells is they are all onshore. And when we got to 2009, 2/3 of the natural gas production in this country was coming from shale. We didn't have another hurricane bump. This little hiccup right here near the end, you guys remember last year, Texas freeze? Texas does not do well with cold. That's what that did. Here's the energy inflation that we all seem to be freaking out about right now. We've gone from $3 to $6. Yes, that's technically a doubling, but because of shale, it's already being addressed. But here's Europe and Asia. Oops, that's the laser. Minimum 3 years before this fixes itself for them. Minimum. The Chinese have blocked the export of all phosphate fertilizer. They were the world's largest supplier. All of the world's nitrogen fertilizer is synthesized from natural gas. So phosphate, weakened. Natural gas, or nitrogen, expensive. Hang on to both of those. Let's talk about the Russians. Yes, this is on its side, so north this way. Just do that if you have to. A lot of people do. There's no shame. This V, this wedge, is populated Russia. It is the part of Russia where it's not so cold that your nose will freeze off in early October. Late October, you're screwed, but early October, you're fine. Now, this orange color here, that's roughly the population density of eastern Nebraska if you melon scoop out Lincoln and Omaha. So you do have neighbors, you will not see them every day. That's populated Russia. On the shoulders, it gets a little less encouraging. So same view, but this is a combined climate and economic map. So the green, that's the Russian wheat belt. That's where everybody lives. The blue, tundra and Tagai, nobody lives there. The yellow, desert, nobody lives there. You technically could survive in the beige, but it's not pleasant. All right. When the Russians look at this map, they really hate what they see because they see a chunk of territory that cannot be defended. They look at it from the point of view of these red hashes. These are the physical boundaries that you can't drive a tank through, or the Mongolians can't horde through. From the Russian point of view, the only way that they can get security is if they can put permanent massed formations in these corridors, the access points to the Russian heartland. When the Soviet Union existed, they controlled all 9 of those access points. It was the most secure the Russian ethnicity had ever been in its existence. When the Soviet Union collapsed and we were left with rump Russia, they went from 9 to 1. In 2007, when the Russians invaded Georgia, they went from 1 to 2. In 2014, when they took Crimea, they went from 2 to 3. Last year, with the second Nagorno-Karabakh war, with the new troops that are there, they went from 3 to 4. They're hoping that the situation in Kazakhstan will stabilize to their benefit, which would take them from 4 to 5. And if they can take Ukraine in its entirety, they would go from 5 to 7. There's a method to the madness. Also means that the Russians can't stop. As Catherine the Great said, the only way that Russia can protect her borders is to expand them. They're not making that up. Does that mean they're going to do it this time around? I have no idea. This is hardly the first time since 2014 that the Russians have chosen to put 100,000 troops on Ukraine's borders to dick with them. Could be, but there's nothing to guarantee it. The reason that they haven't moved is because time is really not on their side. Oh yeah, do we have anyone from Texas? Yeah, it's not as big as you think. Time is not on their side. This is the Russian demography, and we're assuming here that the Russians are not lying about the numbers, and they lie about all their numbers. So, you know, this bulge down here probably is not as big as it looks, because back in 2014, they just found 8 million children that they didn't have in the previous year's census. So, but here's the part that really matters. This is the generation that was born in the 1990s and early 2000s. The Cold War collapse. That's draftable age. Yes, the Russians can probably take the country with 130,000 troops, take Ukraine, but they can't hold it. You guys know that from the experience in Iraq and Afghanistan. Occupying's not easy when the population doesn't want you there. It's a country of 45 million people. That's Iraq plus Afghanistan. And unlike Iraq and Afghanistan, where the population concentrations were pretty tight, Ukraine is farmland. Not possible with 130,000 troops. You're talking 2 million troops. The Russians only have 2 million troops that can play that role, and they are irreplaceable, and once they are deployed, that is it. Russia is done. It is Russia's last war. It's an open question in the United States whether it's better to just let them die over the long term, which they will, or lock them down in a war that is endless, which it would. From the American point of view, these are both equally viable options. The Ukrainians, of course, have an opinion. Bringing this back to the China discussion, Russia and Belarus are the world's second and fourth largest supplier of phosphates, or excuse me, of potash. Nitrogen fertilizer is disappearing because of what's going on in energy markets. Phosphate fertilizer is disappearing because of what's going on in China. And if this war happens, potash fertilizer globally has a shortage as well. Yes, rifles are an industrial technology, but so is fertilizer. And if you remove all 3 types of fertilizer at the same time, this world is over. Now, the US will be fine. We either produce it ourselves or get stuff we need from Canada. But the rest of the world, the technical term is fucked.